G'day guys, welcome to another Dark Cave Miners live stream. Today we have Rob joining us from GetBlock and also Kay from GetBlock. How are you guys?
Hey CW, how you doing today?
A little sleep deprived from the ongoing summit, but yeah, all things have run smoothly, so it's fantastic. We've seen some great engagement on that side of things and some great content, so sort of continue that here with the discussion with you guys.
Yeah, it's been a marathon for sure. So appreciate the hard work that you've been putting into it. I think that it's gone a long way, and it's bringing a lot of light and viewers to kind of the videos that you guys have been putting together. So great job.
Yeah, it's a good collective by the community also. There's some nice content going out there from across all sort of channels as well. It's great to see. Even yourself, I see you guys put together a nice article in regards to sort of your ambitions, and I think that's what we're here to discuss today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited to talk about today's topic. I think it's something that's it's not really discussed as much. I think, it pops up here and there, but it's something we've always had our eyes on, and I think that it's a good time to, have a discussion really around, decentralization and proof of work mining, right?
Yeah,
We talk about DeFi and decentralization and everything else, but when you look at the mining aspect of it as a whole, I think there's a lot of centralized aspects that many people may not be aware of.
yeah, that just leads me into my first question here. Actually, sort of, um, what are the centralized points in the mining sort of ecosystem currently? Like I know we've discussed this at length, but for viewers who may not have sort of watched previous sort of dark cave mining videos.
Sure. I mean, there's actually several aspects of it. I mean, even taking a step back away from mining pools themselves. I mean, when you think about proof of work mining, what is it, right? Someone goes out, they buy equipment, they bring that equipment home, they wherever they set it up. What do they need to do next? They need to download a miner and find a mining software that they're going to use. Well, right now, currently, there's really not a lot of open source mining software out there. A lot of it's closed source. It's made by developers. They charge a fee, and then obviously, that fee goes to the ongoing development of the actual mining software,
Yeah,
which to a point it makes sense, right? There's a lot of maintenance required, and there's a lot of upgrades, there's new GPUs, there's all these contributing factors that come into play where we all know development's not for free, right? So I can understand the fees that are needed, but at the same time, I think there is probably a more decentralized way to go about that, but that's not really what we at getblock.io is focusing on right now. It's more on the mining pool side of things.
yeah. So
um
on the decentralization sort of point of view, there actually, you guys have sort of discussed at length that you want to be decentralized, and I think we're here to discuss that also. So what are some of the things that you guys have sort of taken the initiative on in trying to be as decentralized as possible so far?
Yeah, so I mean, taking a step back, when you look at mining pools as a whole, right? Usually,
Yeah,
it's one centralized source. There's a pool operator, right? Which at this point in time, GetBlock is the pool operator of our pool, and you look at all the other pools, it's one main person or a group of people that are running that pool. And why? Because in order to have a mining pool, you need to have infrastructure, and that infrastructure it consists of several aspects, right? There's obviously the node, which in this case it's the Ergo node, which is
yeah,
probably one of the most decentralized aspects of the mining pool. But at the end of the day, when you look at the node itself for a mining pool, that's really the mining pool's wallet and their payment mechanism, right?
yeah,
So that's what's kind of holding all the erg. That's what's where the erg's being distributed from, and it's a node-based wallet, right? So that there is a centralized point there. Aside from that, there's a stratum. There's obviously the infrastructure, or the cloud infrastructure it would take to
yeah,
have a regional global mining pool, and then the back end as well. And all of these are centralized points that are really controlled by the pool operators, right?
yeah.
So you take a look at it, and we've talked about this several times, but there is the potential, and we're not saying that every mining pool is doing this. There are good actors out there, but you know, there is the potential that that data could be manipulated, right?
Yeah.
It could be manipulated. It's off-chain data, right? So it's not like it's visible on chain. And, you know, that's where it gets into the gray area of trust, right? So it's not a trustless system. Um,
Yeah, with
so,
mining
you know,
rewards and block hits and everything like that, you just have to kind of trust that the guys are doing the right thing behind the scenes there.
exactly. So, I mean, back to your initial question, you know, what has GetBlock done to, you know, kind of, you know, start that path of decentralization? I think it's always been kind of part of our ethos, right? You know, we've always aimed for, you know, not only full decentralization, but transparency as well, because they kind of
Yeah,
go hand in hand. Was the smart pools themselves, right? So I think, you know, with obviously Karat's, you know, amazing work with smart contracts, he's been able to develop, you know, a way where, you know, we've been able to start putting some of this information on chain, right? So our payments are on chain, our fees, you know, there's several other aspects, but there's still a lot of information that is controlled, you know, by GetBlock. And, you
yeah,
know, you probably sit here and say, well, why are you saying this? Like, you know, we're trying to make, you know, keep this decentralized and, you know, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, I think they're all important factors that need to be addressed. And that's really, you know, what we're aiming to do as a whole, as an entity. And it's, you know, taking it the next step, right? How can we start getting the remainder of the data that gets processed for a mining pool on chain? That's kind of the first step and the first vision that we have. You know, and Karat's done an amazing job, you know, one, you know, not only learning Ergo and, you know, being able to teach others about Ergo, and he really has embraced it, but I think that, you know, he's been able to utilize it and create these systems and these processes within his code that, you know, enable us to decentralize even further. So I'll
yeah.
stop there, and you know, I think that's really kind of the first initiative that we have taken, and it allows, you know, some transparency, you know, for miners, but we want to, you know, again, take it further than that.
Yeah, most definitely. I think that's a great overview as well of sort of how a traditional mining pool runs and then how you guys are currently running. And then we can sort of dive into just a little bit later in the stream in regard to sort of what you are planning to even go even further on that decentralized and sort of transparency front also. So from a transparency point of view, uh, what have you guys sort of done on that front also? I know you've got the smart pools and that's all sort of on chain now. Is that sort of elaborating even further there?
Yeah, so I mean, you know, obviously the smart pools and everything that we're processing on chain, but I think outside of that, and many have seen this in our community. I mean, we aim to be very transparent, just as a whole, as a community, you know, within the ecosystem. So you know, it's up to miners, right? We want to hear miners' voices. We want to, you know, hear what they want so we can improve, you know, our pool. Because again, this is a, you know, this all started because we aim to build something by miners for miners. So I mean, I think, you know, just in our communications and things of that nature, that's where another level of transparency comes into play. When we mess up, we admit, you know, we admit it, we own it, you know, we eat it, we, you know, build around it to improve, and you know, we ensure that we're communicating that to our mining community.
Yeah, that goes alongside with the trust factor as well. Like obviously you're building that, and obviously being open, transparent. There's nothing sort of behind closed doors, and you're always willing to sort of open up to the community and provide answer questions. I think we saw a great example of that is when the you had that sort of teething problems with the payouts. Um, Obviously open, transparent. You had everything sort of like the UI wasn't basically up, but everything was running on the back end, and you very open and transparent in that communication. It was great to see.
Yeah, and I think again, I think it's very important. And you know, another important thing is, you know, we're here, right? I mean, we're out in the, you know, in the public. We show our face to the public. We have nothing to hide. So I mean, you know, we're real people. We're, you know, we're part of the community, and we just, you know, I think, you know, being you know, just like the miner next to you is important. And you know, we really you know, we take that we embrace that. And you know, I think using that and moving, you know, using that ethos as we kind of move forward in this process is really important.
Yeah, most definitely. Okay, is there anything you want to sort of elaborate on the smart pool side before we sort of get into sort of the scaling sort of side of things?
Yeah, so in general with the smart pools, we kind of try to make everything as transparent as possible. So, you know, right now, as we stated before, really only the payouts are kind of on chain. But in addition to that, we post a lot of other information related to kind of like the share scores that each miner got. The balance is stored inside the contract. What block is being paid out, all of this stuff. So it kind of helps people navigate this transparency aspect inside the smart pool. And we actually have a part of the UI that's kind of just dedicated to this transparency part. I think if you go in like the smart pool section and click on share data or something, you can see it. But it's
Yeah.
like a big table with all of these different like all this information that's stored in the smart contract. And really just the point of that is to show that, you know, we're trying to be honest. We're trying to show exactly how your payouts are calculated. And if you want, you could go in there, you could take your share score, you could take the sum of all the other ones, you could do the math, and your payout should be, you know, exactly the same.
Yeah. Uh, I'll leave that to someone else who has a lot more time on their hands. I'll put my trust in you guys on that one, that's for sure. Filtering through all that would be a bit of a nightmare. So that's a little bit of great overview in the subpool side of things. But yeah, you recently, like I mentioned earlier, just released an article on some more scaling solutions, and then sort of even that more decentralized sort of side of things as well. So um, in regards to that, you have the development of Plasma. So that's supporting that initiative. Can you elaborate on what sort of Plasma is and sort of how that decentralizes the pools even further?
Right. So Plasma is kind of this library that we created, and it's also sort of just a concept in cryptocurrencies, blockchains in general, which is kind of about taking these authenticated dictionaries um, that are able to compress data down into very small amounts, and then you can post this data on chain and verify certain aspects of it. So you can verify if some piece of data exists. You can apply updates or changes. You can delete data. So essentially, it allows you to compress all this huge amount of information and just place it on chain and make it visible, and even use smart contracts to kind of manipulate that data and make it truly trustless. So in respect to decentralizing the pool, there's actually a few different mechanisms here that Plasma is used for. So I think we'll probably get more into this a bit later, but you know, Plasma will be used for compressing down share data to pay out miners. But more currently, and what is currently being used for is as part of our subpool contracts themselves, and it's allowing us to take hundreds of miners, which ends up being a lot of data, and we're able to take the data for all these hundreds of miners and compress it down, and then just pay all of these miners out very quickly.
Yeah, I think people don't sort of realize how much data is accumulated from a mining perspective, just in regards to shares. And like you mentioned, we can sort of dive into that a little bit later. It, it it adds up quite quickly. Lots of small amounts of data as well. So having to be able to store that somewhere, compress it, and then even just verify, like you mentioned, on chain, I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's pretty important, I'd say. And I'd say like the reason I started creating Plasma, the library, was sort of to solve this decentralization issue and the scaling problems that kind of come with it. So it's always been our goal to use Plasma for this to some extent, and now we're kind of starting to see it in action.
Yeah, so even more onto the scaling side of things. So in that document, you also mentioned some L2 sides as well. So uh, decentralized layer 2 has a sort of nice ring to it. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Right. So yeah, that's actually another important kind of key place for Plasma to be used. So most of these layer 2 solutions like rollups and Plasma itself, which is kind of named a bit weirdly, but Plasma is also like an L2 scaling solution as well. But really, all these solutions, they tend to use these authenticated dictionaries to compress the data down and then verify it onto whatever main chain it is. So maybe it's ETH, and for in our case, it's Ergo. So in regards to that, these L2 solutions, really, they all use AVL trees, and we're going to be kind of doing the same sort of thing. We're going to be offloading some of this computation, placing it into a different sort of network that communicates with itself, and then posting it back onto Ergo. From there, you can use the power of Ergo smart contracts to kind of manipulate that data and do different things with it.
Very interesting concept. Rob, is there anything you want to elaborate on that one?
Sorry, couldn't get off mute fast enough. No, I think, obviously, Karat's the mastermind behind the scaling solution. But, I think it's important, right? Because, just, as we kind of, went on this journey from, a small mining pool into a large mining pool, the one thing that's like really just the kind of the body of the pool, or just what really brings it all together is the shared data, right? I mean, it's the most important thing to the miner itself, right? Those shares are being submitted, that's what's being submitted to potentially find a block. So it's crucial that we keep that data not only right, but as we process these millions and millions of shares, to be able to compress them down and now process them that much faster is just, I mean, it really opens up the door for us to broaden a wide array of capabilities within the mining pool itself and beyond that. So it's really interesting to see how some of these concepts from just how can we scale our mining pool are really enabling us to build on top of that and build our own L2 solutions, which it's really just something that I think we've always had it as a kind of an idea, right? We've always wanted to find a way to tokenize the pool or do something with the pool that could really bring value, not only to the protocol but to miners, and really enable projects to build on top of that. I think with Plasma and some of the work that Karada is kind of looking to do with the processing of the pool, I think it's really going to take us there.
Yeah, most definitely. We've mentioned the share side of things a couple of times now. So I think the miners may see the sort of thing, like even just in their miner, they can see the shares which are even dropped or they've all been processed, etc. From that perspective, they might have a high overview, but sort of what happens on the back end side of things for all that share handling we've touched on, it's quite a large sum of data. What sort of happens on that back end side of things?
Right. So, currently, most mining pools kind of just collect all these shares up and they calculate data with them. But to start off with, let's kind of go into what a share is. So
yeah, good start.
When you're mining, you're receiving these block candidates from whatever node you're mining to, whether it's a solo node, your solo mining, or it's the pool operator's node. So these nodes, they send out block candidates, which is essentially all the information you need to start mining pretty much and start being able to create blocks. So this information comes to your miner and it starts, warming up this mining process, and it starts calculating all these hashes and all this different computations that goes into it. So essentially, with these block candidates and all this mining process, you come up with different block solutions, and some of these block solutions will end up making it on chain because they're valid blocks. Other times they won't. So when you don't really have a valid solution, we call it a share, and that's really just kind of proof that you did the work of putting your miner on the pool, and you were actually mining and you were actually putting in work to try and create blocks. And in this way, the pool can kind of keep track of all of these shares, all of these partial block solutions, and then be able to later pay out miners according to the work that they put in whenever that block is found.
Yeah, so it's basically your proof of work, and then the payouts calculated for the amount of sort of shares that you contributed to actually finding that block, in essence, and then you just get paid out in that percentage. Is that correct?
Exactly. Yeah, it's pretty much you're putting in the work, and you get paid out proportionally to how much work you put in.
Yeah. So that's a share itself. So what sort of happens on the back end side from the Getbox perspective for basically handling all that data?
Right. So most mining pools use this protocol called Stratum, which is sort of a network layer between the miner and the pool that allows the miner to send all of these shares to the mining pool. From there, the mining pool is collecting all of these shares and then storing it in a backend infrastructure. And using that backend infrastructure, they're able to keep track of how much shares a miner has, what difficulty or how hard it was to create that share, what block that share was for, when it was created, all of this different information. Then using all this information, it's all stored in the back end, and then whenever a block is found, the block reward is received to the pool operator's wallet. Then they begin calculating each miner's payout proportional to the work that they put in. So, when you have like what do we have, like 350 gigahashes or so, we have like millions of shares, thousands, maybe millions. I don't know. It's a ton.
Yeah.
So all of this data is stored in the back end, and then we have to, select all this data properly. We have to grab all of it. Then we start essentially calculating how much work was put into that share, and then we sum it all up, per miner, and then we take each miner's kind of share score, and then we sort of start paying the miners out from the block reward proportionally to their share score. And in that way, you're kind of just paying them out according to the work they put in, which was kept track by all those shares that they were mining towards previously.
Yeah, and then all that data is then sort of transferred on chain, I believe. Is that through Plasma?
Right. So yeah, for GetBlock at least, we're essentially then taking all of this shared data, we're compressing it down into really just a single number called a share score,
Yep.
and then we're putting that on chain.
All right.
And that share score is then what's being used to pay out miners currently.
Yeah, perfect. No worries. Thanks for that clarification, and very clear example as well. I think it was great to be able to hear that from a wizard like yourself. I think that's fair to say. So that's sort of ties into this sort of next thing as well, is like the job handling as well. Can you elaborate on that?
Right. So, going back to, the definition of a share is really just, a partial block, a partial block, a block that wasn't really valid, but it's being used kind of to pay out miners. So these shares, they're all generated from this block candidate that each miner gets. And these block candidates are all being generated from the mining pool's node. So when we talk about jobs and job handling, what we're really talking about is what block candidate is being used to mine, and how are the miners receiving that block candidate. So, with all pools currently, all pools are using one or a set of central nodes that contain their pool wallet and are sending out these block candidates to miners. So each of these different jobs has different information, like the block height, the transactions that make it into the block, and the votes that the miner who mines the block wants to post on chain. And that's really important for soft forks. Like with 5.0 coming up very soon, miners are going to be able to vote for that, and the way they do that is through posting blocks on chain with the correct votes set. So the problem with job handling as it's currently done is that one miner, or sorry, what the mining pool itself is the one controlling all of the jobs, all of the block candidates. So really, when a miner is mining to a mining pool, the reward that that is created from the blockchain, it goes to the mining pool operator, because that's the wallet inside their node. Besides that, all the transactions that make it on chain, the mining pool is technically the one who decides what makes it on chain and what doesn't. So if you have, say, a malicious mining pool, someone who doesn't really want to act nicely, then they can, censor transactions. They can look through the current available transaction in the mempool, and if they don't like you, they'll take it out and they'll say you're not making it on chain. Right. So it's a problem. It's a big problem, because you don't want to keep this power in the hands of a single central entity. And moreover, going back into the voting side of things, as it currently stands, really mining, rather proof of work governance, is not really controlled by the miners. It's controlled by the people who are creating these block candidates and then posting them on chain. And that's mostly, for the most part, it's just mining pools. And I mean, there are solo miners too, of course, but mining pools have the bulk of the hash rate. So, when you're trying to do proof of work governance, it becomes kind of like like a trust me bro kind of situation. So the pool can choose whatever they want. They can go into the node settings and say, okay, I don't want to vote for node 5.0. I don't care what the miners in my pool say. I'm just going to set that option off, and no 5.0 for Ergo. So it's an issue, because the miners don't really get a say, and they're kind of just trusting the pool that they'll act according to what they want. That's not really safe. That's not secure at all.
Yeah. I think the whole point of all this is to get away from that trust me bro model as well. So I think the big question here is, how do we sort of decentralize all that sort of thing, like the job handling, the share handling, all that sort of side of it?
Right. So that's a big question. And there's like a lot that goes into it. So let me start off with sort of the share handling aspect of it. And for the share handling, so as I said before, with GetBlock, what we currently do is we post these share scores, which is kind of the amount of work that you put in, created from a calculation, and we post that on chain. And that's okay, and it's pretty good for payouts. It works very well, but there's still some issues in that the share score itself, that's not, you don't know exactly how that was created, and that calculation isn't on chain. And the reason for that is that, like I said, there's millions and millions of shares, and it's not really feasible to post every single individual share onto the blockchain. It's just too much data, and you just can't make that work without inflating the size of the blockchain. And not only that, it's just so much computation, because there's so many different data points that you have to go through.
Yeah, totally.
So
understandable.
yeah. So to solve that initial problem, that's where kind of AVL trees and Plasma comes in. We can use this AVL tree data structure to compress all of these individual singular shares down into this really small footprint that we can then post on chain. So that's kind of going to be the first part of decentralizing the pool, and that's solving this share storage issue.
Yep.
So, once you have that issue solved and you have all these different shares posted on chain for each different miner, you still kind of have this issue that you need to calculate the share scores for each miner. And you can't just go through each share because there's, like I said, there's thousands of them, and you don't want to put that on chain. You don't want to put that computation on chain. So this is a pretty unwell researched area, but there are a few papers that kind of go into this, and really the main one comes from the Ethereum smart pool paper. And that one kind of uses an algorithm where it randomly selects like 5 to 10 shares from this entire, this AVL tree of shares.
Yeah.
And it checks if they're valid, if they make sense, and if, no funny business went on when the miner posted them, right? Along with that, this Ethereum smart pool algorithm, it involves the miner posting the share score that they think they would have gotten in a way.
Yep.
So, you're kind of posting your entire total share database on chain, and you're posting what you think the amount of work you put in is, represented by that database.
Yeah.
So when you do that, you kind of make it in such a way so that bad actors can never earn more than good actors. So, let's say I'm like a not so good guy, and I decide to post some fake shares on chain, and it goes through this smart contract, right? Smart contract is going to randomly select a few different shares from this AVL tree. When that happens, if it finds even a single incorrect share, my entire reward is gone. Yeah. And only if all of my shares are accurate, or rather all of the randomly selected shares are accurate, then I get paid out according to the share that I claimed to have. So it's kind of an interesting way of handling it, but what it ends up doing is that if you're a bad actor, your chance of, your bad shares making it on chain and being paid is really your proportion of bad shares to good shares. So, maybe once or twice I could post some bad shares on chain and it would go through and I'd get a payout. But if I try to do this consistently, I'd find that eventually, some of these randomly selected shares are going to end up being the invalid ones that I posted, and then I'm not going to get a reward. So, the math works out that over time, if I'm acting dishonestly, I never end up earning more than an honest actor, because at some point my invalid shares will be found. And in actuality, the rate of, my rewards being slashed is the proportion of my bad shares to my good shares. So it kind of works out well in that sort of mathematical sense.
Yeah, because that's quite a disincentive there also, which is fantastic to see. But yeah, just on that as well, I would trust you. I wouldn't have any issues with that. But Rob, on the other hand, I'd be sort of thinking he's a bit of a questionable one. So yeah, make sure you keep an eye on him there, mate.
Definitely need to watch out.
No, that's a really good overview, actually. Very simple, simple terms there to be able to sort of picture how it all sort of comes together as well. I think that's a great. Thank you very much for that. So one thing I've also read now is sort of collateralizing mining pools. Once again, sort of just throw you under the bus. Is that something you can elaborate on here today?
Yeah, so actually it ties in well with what we were talking about earlier, because collateralized mining pools is really the solution to the job handling problem. Yep. So, as I stated before, job handling is all about this one central node that's being a point of failure, in that whoever operates the node is the one who's controlling all of these different parameters and transactions that make it on chain. So, the question then becomes, how do we solve that problem? How do we make it so that there isn't one single central node? So to begin, really the most simple way to do it is that every miner who participates in this decentralized pool has to run a node. And that's great, but then it isn't really a pool anymore. It's just a bunch of people solo mining.
Bunch of solo miners, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it doesn't help anybody because you don't get that benefit of consistent payouts. You don't get, with solo mining, you have no idea when the block is going to come, and you're just hoping that eventually you'll get a valid block and get your block reward. So then to solve this next problem where it's just a bunch of solo miners, what we can do is we can say that, okay, so if you want to participate in the decentralized pool, you not only have to run your own node, but you have to collateralize some erg. So you'll say the current block reward is like 48 erg, right? So if you want to be a part of the pool, you need to not only run your own node, but you need to have some erg locked away that's equal to at least the current block reward.
Yep.
And it's locked away in a smart contract. And whenever you mine a block, that smart contract is being executed, and you're kind of inserting this transaction into the block without even sending it to any other mempools. And
Yep.
This transaction, what it does is it takes your collateralized erg, and then it's used to pay out the rest of the miners inside the pool. So in this way, you aren't really solo mining anymore because everybody in the pool is getting a reward, and the person that's kind of paying the reward is whichever miner in the pool found a block. So,
Yeah, that's an interesting concept because obviously the miner who hits the block wants the reward. And in this sort of scenario, they're the ones sort of dispersing the rewards to everyone else.
right, exactly. And, the smart contract can be made in such a way that, if they don't do this or they try to do something wrong, then transaction will execute and the block will not be a valid block on chain. So, in that case, you kind of prevent bad actors from trying to steal the entire block reward. So, now you have a system where you have a bunch of nodes and you have a bunch of these collateralized miners, and they're all locking up some amount of erg. Whenever they mine a block, they're spending this collateralized erg and they're paying the rest of the mining pool out. And, you've made it in such a way so that participation in the pool requires that you pay the rest of the miners out. Otherwise, your rewards get slashed.
That's really
So
good
yeah,
disincentives there.
yeah, and it works. It works very well. But I think one problem that I personally found, and one problem I really didn't like about this method was that, one of the benefits of proof of work is that you can go into you can start mining to the blockchain, and without any sort of prior erg or whatever asset it is, you can start mining to the blockchain and just start receiving erg without going through any sort of KYC, no exchanges, none of it. You're just using your computational power to earn the base asset depending on the amount of work you performed.
Yep.
And that's really great. And I think that's a really important aspect of proof of work. But the problem is, if you want to decentralize the pool, erg needs to be collateralized, and these two things kind of clash. You can't have new miners join this decentralized pool without having erg already in their wallets. And I don't think it's good to say, oh, you can join the decentralized pool after you've made 48 erg.
Yeah, so they have
like,
to go and solo mine themselves for
yeah,
X
yeah,
amount of time and try and hit a block and then put that collateral up.
yeah, it's not the best way of handling it, in my opinion. So then we kind of get into the next phase here, where we say, okay, so we have these miners and they're mining to their nodes, but we don't want them to use their own erg. So instead, what we can do is we can have third-party lenders collateralize their erg and provide it to the mining pool. So this is I think starts getting pretty big and interesting in my opinion, in that you kind of have this mechanism now where third-party lenders are providing erg to this mining pool, and they're essentially helping to decentralize almost a blockchain in a way, but even just the pool itself. They're helping to support this decentralized mining pool by providing their erg and letting new miners who have never ever interacted with the blockchain before, to receive rewards in a completely decentralized manner. And
It's a cool
that's great.
concept because you're building a community of trust there also in some respect as well, and some reputation, I guess, as well.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really important aspect of decentralized mining pools in general, and this layer 2 solution that we wish to build, because you're kind of almost in a way letting people, I don't want to say staking erg, but
Yep.
you're letting them provide erg to help decentralize the network even further, and let miners kind of get payouts on time, and really participate in proof of work in a decentralized way, while still getting the consistent payouts that more centralized options are able to provide.
So how is that sort of tracked as well? Like, say, Rob's a new miner. I put up some collateral for Rob. Is that tracked by, say, an NFT or something along those lines?
So I think in my opinion, and I won't say it's all figured out yet, but I've been going through a few different design patterns and different ways to go about this. The way I've currently kind of settled on is that, the lenders kind of just they if they want to gain some yield on their erg, because first of all, no one's going to lock up their erg for nothing. Liquidity has a value in and of itself. So when you lock something up, usually there has to be some kind of incentive to do so. So we'll say that these liquidity providers, they'll essentially be gaining some certain amount of pool fees due to providing their liquidity. So the way it's going to work is that these liquidity providers, they just go and kind of send the block reward, so 48 erg, into a smart contract.
Yep.
And what the smart contract says is that if it's included in a mined block, then it kind of goes to the rest of the pool, like we said. But more importantly, all of these different UTXOs holding these different collateral payments are all stored inside sort of another AVL tree that's kind of keeping track of these different collateral payments, right? Now, then essentially, whenever a miner wants to mine a block and participate in the decentralized pool, they're able to choose which collateral box they want to use, and they include it into that initial transaction that pays out the rest of the pool. So I kind of like this method because what it allows for is that eventually, when a miner gets enough erg, he can set up his own collateral and help to kind of decentralize the pool and put up erg, and he can choose his own erg. So in this way, by helping to collateralize the pool, yourself as a miner, you avoid the fee aspect because you're the one who gains the fee in the first place.
Yeah.
So yeah, go on.
I was just going to say, I think this sort of leads into something that in my thought process as well, is when you started mentioning liquidity pools and liquidity providers, is tokens. Has there been any thoughts around any tokenomics or anything like that from you guys?
Yeah,
Right,
I'll start
so
this one off. Oh, go ahead,
no, you can
Karat.
go on.
No, I was
I
gonna
was
say
just
I'll
gonna
start this.
say.
Go ahead.
Okay, here. Yeah, I was just gonna say that yeah, the point of the token is kind of to help offset that fee. because we don't want miners to pay for decentralization. But go on, Rob, with the tokenomics and stuff.
Yeah, and I was gonna say I think that we still have a lot to figure out around the tokenomics side of the token, but it will be the base asset of the protocol or the platform that we're looking to build. So, the token will, obviously be used to incentivize, users or pool operators to run our platform, but aside from that, we're going to look to do some really interesting things, within the tokenomics. As everyone knows, kind of we have these pillars that we land on just as an organization, right? And a lot of that's really driving education, driving continuation in software development, and I think there's some other things that we're going to look to do not only within those buckets, but also, as we've always discussed, how do we tie in, some of the entities within getblock.io that we can build on top of this platform, right? Because this platform is really going to be of the people, right? It's no longer going to be, centralized by getblock.io. So it's really an interesting concept how we can, tokenize kind of this whole platform, because at the end of the day, or taking a look back, we've always wanted to create a token, right? We've had discussions probably for the past year about how do we take what we're doing and tokenize it. And I think that we held back because we really wanted to make sure that we weren't just launching another coin, right? Another token. We wanted to make sure that it was really meaningful. And I think that what's being developed here will really prove value and utility of the token, other than just, hey, it's a token and this is what we can do with it. I think it's really going to be a core asset within the Ergo ecosystem moving forward.
Oh, so there you have it, guys. Fat scoop. There we go. There's going to be a get block token
Soon.
So,
Soon,
yeah,
definitely
just the
soon.
standard response soon. Oh, that's really exciting. I think all the best for you guys. I think all your hearts lay in the right position as well. I think anyone could go out and tokenize, and or we see it all too often in this industry where they sort of put up smoke and mirrors and just put a light paper out and then tokenize, and you don't really see an end product. I love the way that Ergo and the ecosystem itself sort of goes about this. They have a proof of concept, they go and build it, they get the community engagement and everything like that. And it's kind of like obviously you have that consideration at the start, but it's also sort of like an afterthought as well. It's like we'll sort of figure all this out on the back side of things once everything's sort of up and we've proved that everything's working, and we do have a use and utility and the use case there.
Yeah, and I think, just to add to that, community is very important to us. So, I mean, one of the things that, we'll be looking to do as we kind of, continue this journey, is we're gonna, make it public, right? We're gonna, as we kind of learn things, or as we, kind of uncover what direction that we're going in, we're gonna make sure that we're completely transparent, share the information that we know, what we're aiming to do. These are the methods that we're gonna, use to solve these issues, and this is why. And we're open to criticism. We're open for feedback. I mean, we're definitely welcome to the community to provide their insight as to what they feel is completely decentralized, right? And obviously this is a step forward, right? I think that there's a lot more that we can do around decentralization as a whole. But I think it's a great step forward. And I think it's gonna really separate not only this platform that we're building, yet to be named. So stay tuned for that. But
Oh, so
yeah,
you give us
yeah,
one little cookie crumb there with the token,
yeah,
but yeah,
yeah,
leave us
yeah.
hanging.
Yeah, I love to, we'll tease the spoilers later. Uh, but no, I think that again, we just, if there's something that you see that the community sees that you feel that we should be looking into, or potentially maybe looking at it a different way, again, we're open to that feedback, and we really welcome that engagement from the community.
Yeah, by all means. One thing that I sort of like to just bring up just prior to the last question here. Correct. You mentioned in regards to sort of the governance side of things, and I think you guys actually had the proof of vote in regards to the ERP voting system. Is that going to be integrated into all this system at some stage?
So actually, the great part of this job handling kind of process that I outlined before is that if every miner is kind of running their own node, then every miner can set whatever parameters they want on the block
Yeah,
that they post.
that's a
So
fair point. Yeah.
really, in that sense, it becomes a true democracy, a true, proof of work democracy under this pool. Because, with proof of vote, it worked very well. But I think one of the issues with that, that some people pointed out to us, is that it's more like a republic.
Yeah,
Um,
true.
miners are kind of voting on what decision the pool operator is going to make, and the pool operator is going to be representing the total amount of these miners. And if you have a differing opinion and the majority disagrees, then your opinion doesn't matter in the end.
Yeah.
And I think I don't think actually the best way to go about it. So this job handling process kind of fixes that, because each miner runs their own node and each miner determines what votes they want whenever their block ends up on chain.
Yeah, no, that's very really good, very well put as well. I think Republic's really a good example that you're kind of basically delegating your vote for the pool itself to vote on your behalf. I think you had some mechanics there to sort of disincentive to be able to, was it slashing or something along those lines if you did something wrong any there along that vote there. Was that correct? Sorry, I'm just mixing up my words here.
Yeah, no, it was kind of made in such a way that the pool operator is incentivized to vote according to the miners, and not just socially, but within the smart contract itself. It's kind of made so that it was kind of made so that our pool fees that we collect are kind of locked in the smart contract, and they are really only paid to us after we prove that the blocks that we mined were according to the vote that all the miners had agreed upon.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks for clarifying that for myself. So what's on next from here? Like, obviously, that's a lot of information to sort of digest. Obviously, you're quite an ambitious project. So what's the next steps looking forward for GetBlock?
So I would say, obviously we put out the recent article. I think that was more of just, giving the community a directional idea of what we're looking to do. The next steps for us is obviously building out a white paper, a full detailed white paper. We will make it user friendly as well, because I know there's a lot of science behind this, but I think that that will be our first step. We've already started that. We've kind of framed out what we want that to look like, and now I think it's just plugging all the pieces and all the information, and obviously allow Karat to do a lot of research, right? Because I think that there's some research that's been done and that's also needed as we continue down this path. And then within that white paper, obviously, this standard will build out a full roadmap, as to what we're looking to do, what is our development plan, and how do we plan to get to the end game here, and then obviously tokenomics around the token that we're looking to do. So what does that token structure look like, and make sure that we really have that buttoned up, because I think that's important too as people look into a project, right? Is what are the tokenomics around it? So we'll be putting some emphasis on that as well.
Yeah, no, by all means, that's great to hear. Karat, obviously you're going to play a big part in all that documentation, I dare say.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, I think there's still a good amount of stuff to kind of go through. Really, we want to be able to take this plan that we have and lay it out in like a nice visual, easy to read roadmap for people to kind of digest and figure out what the plan is, where we're going to go from here. So I think that's definitely needed, and that's something that we're working on. I think also besides that, we need to think about, outside the protocol, what kind of services do we kind of want to build on top of it? What kind of things are possible when you have a protocol kind of backed by decentralized pools? And I think there's a lot of different things. Stuff like hash rate lending and different sort of financial instruments that are kind of powered by proof of work. I'm not going to get into it too much here. There's still some stuff to figure out, but
Another tease,
I
mate. Come on.
There's a lot of interesting things that are going to be coming in our future for GetBlock, and I'm excited to see it all come to fruition. And I'm sure that all of our miners and I guess soon the lenders or collateralizers as well will be pretty interested to see it.
That's awesome to see. I think I can see the excitement on both your gentlemen's faces as well. So it's I'm intrigued. I'll be following this with a lot of interest. It's great to hear. Just got a couple of questions here just in the chat. So is there any examples of controlled information? I think that was from Wombo when we were talking about share handling and that sort of side of it.
I guess it kind of depends what you mean by controlled information. I think if you're kind of talking about the centralized aspect of share handling, I think the biggest issue is that it's so easy for someone to go into the back end and just like fudge the numbers up and just make it make things not really accurate. And
trust me, bro.
Exactly. It's all based on trust me, bro, and it's not good because what if I'm a mining pool operator and I want to kind of give myself some extra erg but make it look like I didn't do that. So I could just go into my Nautilus wallet, create a new address, and pretend like I'm mining to it, and then assign some shares in the back end, steal them from some people, assign it to my own self, and then I can get some extra rewards. It's that easy, and I think people don't understand just how simple it is for decentralized pool operators to go in and do whatever the heck they want with your information, with your payouts.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point as well. Like you always have these sort of thoughts and things, but it doesn't have to be a significant amount. It could be pennies at a time, and that when you've got a mining pool has a sort of big significant stake in the pool, those lots of little payouts just add up over time as well.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you're getting like 10, 20 blocks per day and you're only taking like small amount, it adds up really quickly, and you can accumulate a lot of erg that you've stolen from your miners just by doing that. I think it's a big issue, and I wouldn't even be surprised to hear if some mining pools are kind of doing that on the low. And problem is there's no way to prove it, no easy way to prove it.
Yeah, by all means. We've just got another question here from Luca, just in regards to the token. What's the ticker going to be?
Okay, well, we haven't decided anything yet, but we'll let you know soon is my answer to that.
I was waiting for it.
Ticker soon.
What else do we have? Just a couple of comments from Chris Ray, just saying it's nice. Hank Moody getting into it. Spill the beans. It's been a great chat once again. Is there any other questions from the guys watching in the chat? Is there any last words that you guys want to sort of elaborate on, or something that you think that we've missed along the way?
No, I think we covered everything pretty well. I mean, from my side, I think, I think you could see the excitement. It's really interesting to be able to create this, DeFi ecosystem that's based or backed by proof of work mine, like directly backed by proof of work mine. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I don't know, like it's like a sub ecosystem in a way, and it's I don't know, it's really cool to see, and I'm excited for not only everything that we discussed today, but and again another tease, but what's to come in the future, because I think that there's a lot that can be done with this framework, and I also think that it will potentially allow other projects to, you know, want to utilize the framework that we're building out as well. So all while securing the Ergo ecosystem. So I think it's really, you know, really an interesting way to kind of go about not only decentralizing mining even further, but, you know, it will also provide additional incentive to miners who are using the platform or the protocol. So
Yeah. No, it's actually a breath of fresh air in the proof of work side of things as well. And if you look at the major play, we all know Ethereum's the big player here. Multi-million-dollar day payouts just in block rewards themselves, and so it's really profitable. But the way the ecosystem themselves have handled miners, they're kind of like the ugly cousin or the third wheel sort of thing left off to the side, and they've actually just kind of booted them up the bum and told them to pack up, and away they go. And I think it's, yeah, like I mentioned, it's a breath of fresh air to see basically all this come to fruition. It's like by miners for miners. It's great to see. I think it sort of encompasses the Ergo values as well, and it's just basically Ergo's work.
no, I think it's important. I really do. I mean, I just, you know, not only because I'm a miner, but I think that, you know, miners really are the backbone of any proof of work blockchain, right? So I mean, I think that you know, they should be acknowledged for their work, and, you know, outside of just, you know, mining rewards. So I think, you know, to be able to provide that additional incentive, it's, you know, it's important to us.
Yeah, most definitely. I just got another question here from Luca. Is there any difference from the way the current subpools are set up to how they'll be sort of hosted, like on the L2 side?
I would say not too different, and really, okay, not too different for, you know, the plasma pools that we kind of made, because when I was designing those pools, I was kind of thinking a bit in the future and thinking about how would this work if we just inserted it into the protocol that we're trying to build.
Yep.
So, you know, in that aspect, there actually isn't too much of a change. And the subpools will still be able to provide, you know, additional profit incentives, additional tokens, and all of this, you know, cool stuff that we built out, just in a more decentralized manner.
I think that answers your question there, Luca. So, gents, I think we're coming up to time here. We've been talking for some time, and I myself, I'm a little bit fried just by the amount of information. So I have to go back and I'll actually watch this one again, actually, and just process everything again. I think it's been really insightful. So thank you very much for all that information.
No, thanks for having us. Appreciate you having us on.
Yeah, no problem, guys. Thanks everyone who